Book 17 of 2020 was Scythe by Neal Shusterman. So I bought this book on Audible and I'd seen it for a while and was quite interested in it, and I'd seen somebody on my Instagram had been reading it as well and really liked it. So I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go, I'll read it, listen to it. And basically it's a world where nobody dies anymore from natural causes, or actually from anything. Like, no one dies, like they've discovered a way to not die anymore. But the problem is that if no one dies, then obviously the population is there's too many people. So Scythes are employed to like kill the quota of people every year, and they get to decide how to kill people and which people to kill. So they just randomly go and kill people. And obviously some Scythes do it in a nice way, and then some do it in like a horrific way and are really horrible about it, and they're not supposed to. And we're kind of introduced to a character who seems a little bit strange, and then kind of recruits people to like be a mentor to, and they will not take his place, I guess, but I guess so. So like when he like dies or whatever, they'll take his place, but they'll join the kind of community. So there's loads of like Scythes that are employed to go around doing the quota, and depending on obviously how many people there are, depends on how many Scythes there are, and they kind of, doing that. So, and they kind of wear like what you imagine death to look like. So they wear kind of like robes, but they're obviously in different colours. They get to choose, and they don't carry a scythe around. But essentially, if you see one, it's like really scary because it could be you that's going to die, and you can't really do anything about it. Like, even if you fight against it, they'll kill your whole family. So you have to kind of just like be killed without like protest, really. And I thought that it was kind of like interesting to think of living in a world like that, where at any minute, someone can come to you and say, right, you're going to die now. And then I thought to myself, but that is death. Like, that happens. Like, any minute, like, something can happen and it's your time to die. Like, that's what happens. And it was funny how it was kind of like a personification of death. Like, this is what actually happens to us. And I kind of thought, like, what would I do if I was a Scythe? Like, who would I pick to die? And how would I kind of deal with that? But I actually thought I probably wouldn't be a Scythe. I'd just be like a random person in the world. And obviously, like I've just mentioned there, it's just like death anyway, isn't it? Which I didn't think about when I was reading the book, actually, and like now I come think of it. But it was interesting because there's a part in the book where one of the people that are so one of the characters, this is an issue with the book, it's kind of like the young characters, because it's YA, which is a downfall of the book, because I don't have any, I keep reading YA books, I don't know why I keep doing it to myself, because I don't relate to the characters because they're too young. Like, I just don't get the way that they think and the way that they are behaving. And I don't think that the writing is realistic because it's written by an adult. But how do I know? Because I'm not like young anymore. But anyway, that's my little rant there, because I've been like reviewing YA books. I'm just like, why do I keep reading them? Because I still have the same problems. Like, I'm reading one at the minute and I'm like, why are you reading this book? Like, you have the same issue with YA books all the time. But I didn't with Divergent, and I didn't with Hunger Games, and it's so annoying that I'm having the issues. But anyway, I read them when I was younger, and probably if I read them again, maybe I'd have the same problems. I don't know. So what was I saying? All right, so there's a part in the book where they have to, this kind of person who's being mentored by the Scythe has to just randomly pick someone to kill, and they say, okay, we're going to use statistics. So every year, like in the olden days, this is how many people used to die like swimming in a river, and the people that died swimming in the river were of this demographic. So they were quite young, and they were quite healthy and whatever. So they had to go through like the records and find people that swam, find people that were of a certain age, and whatever the demographic was, I can't quite remember now. And it came up with like 4 hits, and then the person, like the character, had to pick just one of them randomly to kill. And so it was interesting because it was like, death is just kind of like bad luck. Like, it could be you that drains in the river. It could be somebody else that drains in the river. It just so happens that on that day and at that time, like it happened to be you, or you cross over the road and you get run over. Well, it might not have been you, it might have been somebody else. It was just you there at the time. And it's kind of like, that's kind of like how death goes, isn't it? Like, you just never know. You just never can predict what is going to happen or anything like that. It's just random most of the time. There's nothing you can do about it. So it's kind of like, touching on that a little bit. And that what's also good about this book, which adds kind of another dimension to it, is that there is like a moral tension about what's right and wrong. So the way that some Scythes kill and the way that some others kill, there's this question of, should you really be killing them the way that you're killing them? Should it be more humane? It's kind of like that kind of, that kind of thought of what's right and wrong, and to be empathetic towards people. And there is this antagonistic group, which is at odds with the main characters. And it was interesting actually, because normally in kind of YA books, there is kind of like an immoral power structure, and the characters are trying to overthrow the power structure. But in this book, it kind of subverts that, because the power structure is moral and it is good, but it's been undermined by an antagonistic group. So it was really, really interesting that it was that different dimension, because that's not what is usually seen in YA books. So I thought that was really perceptive of Shusterman to kind of do that, because it still worked and it was still great. I suppose it takes a little bit of the suspense out of it, because but then I suppose like the power structure isn't like, doesn't have all power, because obviously this antagonistic group is getting away with it. So it's not like I suppose it's more of like a democracy rather than a totalitarian regime, which is what the other YA things touch on, YA books touch on. So maybe that's why it's kind of slightly different. But I did enjoy it. I did want to carry on reading it. I enjoyed like listening to the characters and the way that the story unfolded. It's not amazing, it's not like the best YA I've ever read, but I did enjoy listening to it. So I would recommend it. I gave it 3 stars out of 5, because I did like it, but obviously it's got flaws in it, and I imagine if I'd read it rather than listening to it, I might have had more problems with the way that it was written, but I don't know, because obviously I haven't seen it on the page. But listening to it, it was fine. And the characters were they were kind of a little bit more 3-dimensional, but they were a bit annoying because they were young, and there's a guy and a girl who like each other, which there always is in YA literature. So apart from the kind of being some stereotypical tropes about it, I enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. I'm not really kind of tempted to read the next book, to be honest. It's not like, oh, I want to read the next one. I think I probably wouldn't, but I enjoyed reading this one, and I would recommend to read it.